Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here, coming at you with a brand new build for Update 33 in the Elder Scrolls Online. This is Dark Arrow, a hybrid Nightblade bow build that combines stamina-based bow skills with Magicka-based Nightblade class skills for an incredibly powerful and unique build for both solo and group play in the Elder Scrolls Online. With this new build, you now get full access to Major Brutality without running a two-hander, without using potions. Plus, you can now use the Nightblade's Magicka Execute skill Impale at full range to perfectly complement the bow. Lots to go over in this brand new build, so let's jump right into it. All right, everybody, we are back on the Nightblade with a brand new build. First build for Update 33 and the Ascending Tides DLC. We are on the PTS right now, testing out some pretty interesting theory crafting, some pretty interesting builds. This Nightblade is going to be kind of like a hybrid setup with the combination of Magicka and stamina abilities, but slightly different than my normal build. So we'll be getting in depth on how this works in just a couple of minutes. But let's start with the character sheet. So checking out these stats here, 16k max Magicka, about 20k max health, 30k max stamina. And look at those recoveries. Those are pretty decent on the solo setup. Now, I do want to talk about the stats a little bit. I did mention this in an earlier video where I talked about different kinds of hybrid setups that you can have now in Update 33. I'm calling this a single stat hybrid or a stamina-focused hybrid build because you can see I have a lot of max stamina. This is pretty much what you would see on a stamina Nightblade, honestly. But we are using Magicka abilities. Those Magicka skills do scale this patch in damage based on your max stamina and your weapon damage, basically your highest offensive stats. You can see my weapon damage, about 3,600 unbuffed currently. That'll be well over 5k. When we have our Major Brutality, when we have our proc sets active, and our back bar glyph. And also our crit chance actually goes up quite a bit as well. You can see about 64% unbuffed. That'll be over 70% for both spell critical and weapon crit. You can see what I've done on attributes here, 64 points into max stamina. Again, while this is sort of technically a hybrid setup, the majority of our skills are stamina based. And so we want our stamina to be as high as possible on this build. For food, we're running the Lava's Foot Soup. This just gives us tons of max stamina plus extra stamina recovery. That's always good. Thief Mundus for that extra crit chance. In terms of the potion, I am running a tri-stat potion. I would recommend tri-stat, or you can just run a mixture of stamina and Magicka trash pots and just switch between those based on whichever resource is lowest. That's another easy and cheap way to run this build. And then finally, in terms of the race, you can see I went with Khajiit here. This is honestly a great choice for a Nightblade setup because we get the extra crit damage, extra crit healing. We get 915 to our max health, Magicka, and stamina, which is also good, plus extra recoveries. Khajiit is a great all-around choice for a bow build or any solo build in general. Of course, you can pretty much make any race work. I'll have others listed over on the website. Feel free to check those out. But yeah, that is the basic setup. Let's dive into the sets next on this bow build and see how it works. Starting with our main offensive set, that is going to be the Briarheart set. We're running this on the bow and the jewelry. This is just a classic damage set for the Nightblade. You can see we get crit chance, max stamina, crit chance again. And then when you deal critical damage, you increase your weapon and spell damage by 450, plus crit strikes also heal you back. So this is very nice for any, solo kind of build. Damage and the healing is definitely very nice. So front bar, Briarheart bow, precise is going to be ideal. Now you can run poisons, which is what I have. I just have the basic crown poisons on right now. You can also run a glyph like absorb stamina. That would be very good also. And then for the jewelry here, 3 pieces of Briarheart jewelry. You're going to want weapon damage and then bloodthirsty there to maximize your execute damage. If you don't have bloodthirsty, if you don't have the transmute stones, then you can just keep the regular robust trait. That's going to be totally fine as well. Second set is also more of an offensive set. This is great for bow builds. Zogvin's Warband. This also gives you 2 crit chance bonuses, but offensive penetration as well, which is really good. And then when you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of precision, increasing your critical chance up to 10 stacks max. And at the 10 stacks, you also get minor force. So that's a 10% critical damage boost. Like I said, super great set for bow builds. It's going to free up a slot so you don't have to worry about running the barb trap or like the ranged morph of barb trap. Plus the extra crit chance and the penetration is very good. So we're going to run that 5 pieces on the body. I think that's just the easiest way to get it. So the chest, waist, hands, legs, and feet. This is a medium set, by the way, so you will get the max stamina enchants there, and then Divine's going to be the ideal trait. You can get your hands on that. Now, in terms of the monster set, great monster set for bow builds, you guys. It's going to be Stormfist. Now, this is a base game monster set, so it's not too difficult to get, but it is amazing now in terms of damage. You can see the one piece gives you stamina recovery, which is pretty good, honestly, on a bow build, especially for soloing. But the 2-piece here, check out this damage. Over 1,000 shock damage every 1 second for 3 seconds, plus a big final smash for about 14k. This is unbuffed currently, too. 14k damage, and that's going to proc every 8 seconds. Now, the great thing about this is that recently ZeniMax changed sets in the game so that procs can now critically strike again. So this can easily hit, up to, 30k plus when that big Stormfist goes off. So it's pretty impressive. You can fire this off at maximum range. It's a great option for bow builds. Definitely check that out. Now, I did go with light on the monster set here. So light helmet, light shoulders. The main reason for that, honestly, is the passives, the light armor passives. Since we are going to run 3 to 4 Magicka skills on this build, having the extra cost reduction from running light armor plus the extra Magicka recovery is pretty nice. You can go with full medium if you want, or even 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light. All of those are great options, but I just went with light here. I kept the max Magicka enchants for both pieces. And then Divines obviously is going to be the best trait for those. Now, that just leaves us our back bar weapon, which is going to be a Maelstrom bow. Now, this is not required. It is going to give you a little bit extra DPS. You don't need the perfected necessarily. You can get the basic Maelstrom bow just from running Maelstrom on normal, completing that, and it's going to be a really good boost in damage. Make sure, though, that you get it infused as the trait, and then make sure you get that weapon and spell damage enchant for the back bar bow. So that's the setup there. You got the Briarheart bow and 3 pieces of jewelry. Got the back bar Maelstrom bow. And then we have the Zogvins on the body plus Stormfist. All right, so I can't wait to show you guys the skills on this build. Let's switch over to that and see how you can do things a little bit different now in Update 33. If you're seeing this a little bit early, this is for Update 33. It might not be on live servers yet by the time you see this video, but if not, this is coming soon. And it adds a lot of diversity and a lot of options to your builds. So first skill we are using is Impale. And that is Nightblade Assassination, first ability, Magicka Morph. So why a Magicka ability on basically a Stamina Nightblade? Well, in Update 33, all damage and healing skills now scale or increase in their effectiveness based off your highest offensive stats, whether that's your Stamina pool combined with weapon damage or your Magicka pool combined with spell damage. So since I have max Stamina and weapon damage, that's actually effectively increasing the damage of my Impale, making it hit as hard as if I was running the stamina version of this called Killer's Blade. So the damage is basically the same. It's exactly the same now in Update 33. But why use this over Killer's Blade? Well, you have a max range execute, which is perfect, you guys, for a bow build. If you're not in Update 33 yet, yes, you can run Killer's Blade here. The only downside to this on a bow build is I think the range is like 5 meters. So you have to get really close to your target for that execute phase. It's okay, you can still do it, but it's so much more fun to be able to just execute at max range, keep weaving in those light attacks on the bow, and it's really effective. I'll show you guys this in the rotation in just a couple minutes, but that is one of the ways that you can now change up your build in Update 33. If you're a stamina build, you might be able to run a Magicka execute skill. Or the opposite, if you're a Magicka build, maybe you can run a Stamina Execute. Next up, we got Relentless Focus. That's also from Assassination. That's our last skill here. This is just the Assassin's Scourge bow proc, right? So basically, once you get up to 5 light or heavy attacks, you stack this bad boy up 5 times. You get the big disease damage bow proc to fire. If this crits, which it will, this is a massive damage spike for your build. So definitely recommend that. And then we've got Camouflage Hunter. This comes from the Fighters Guild skill line. Bit of a change here as well. That's going to be really interesting in Update 33. You now gain both Major Savagery and Major Prophecy. So that's about 12% weapon and 12% spell crit chance. I also get Minor Berserk if you're attacking from behind. So if you have a group or you have a companion, for example, you can get that 5% bonus damage as well. So really good buff to have. I really like how they added the spell critical to this. This means, for example, that my Impale crits just as often as my stamina skills because I have both versions of that buff on my front bar. Main spammable DPS skill is going to be Focused Aim. That comes from the bow skill line. You can run either version of this morph. I like this version better because it does have a lower cost. You also get the Minor Breach debuff. So that's especially good if you're playing solo. And then next up, another Magicka ability here, Debilitate, comes from the Siphoning skill line. A couple reasons why you want a Siphoning ability on this. One would be the passives. You actually get more max Magicka by running Siphoning skills. That's just going to let us cast a couple extra Impales, having that extra bonus to our Magicka pool. But we also get a nice single target dot. Again, if you're playing this build in Update 33, that will scale off your stamina and weapon damage, making it very effective. Plus you get minor Magicka steal, so that's going to help you sustain those Magicka skills a little bit better as well. Ultimate here is really just for the passive weapon and spell damage. That's going to be Flawless Dawnbreaker. Comes from the Fighters Guild. We're really not going to use this. You could use it for like AoE situations and clearing, trash mobs. That's what I would save that for. Let's go ahead and swap to the back bar, which is our Maelstrom Bow, where we have a couple dots and buffs, starting with Poison Injection. Let me talk about this for a minute. So Poison Injection has a new morph. I think I've talked about this previously. The other morph now gives you weapon and spell damage, gives you the same buffs. There's actually a better way I think you can get this for a bow build, which I'll talk about in just a minute. It's on the back bar as well. So I stuck with Poison Injection as my morph of choice here, just for the extra bonus damage. I think that's still a really good way to go. Then, of course, we have Endless Hail. That's your second bow ability. And that's just really to proc our back bar weapon damage glyph. Gives us as much weapon damage as possible. Echoing Vigor is just kind of an emergency heal. This is going to be great, especially if you have a companion with you. Gives you a nice heal over time for you and your group. That, by the way, comes from the Assault skill line. That's the first ability there. And then we have Piercing Mark. This comes from Assassination. Now, a couple reasons why you want this. One, you get some nice passive damage, since this is an Assassination ability that comes from your passive skills in the skill line. But also this gives Major Breach to your target, so that's going to reduce all of their armor by about 6,000, letting your abilities do more damage. Now this is going to be essential if you're trying to solo things like world bosses or dungeons. You're going to want some type of armor debuff, so Piercing Mark is a great way to do it. Has a long duration, it's also free to cast, so pretty nice. And then finally, I was talking about how do you get your main damage buff. Well, you can now get that on the Stamina Nightblade through Degeneration, and this is going to be a great option for range builds. You can see this gives you Major Brutality and Sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 24 seconds. So I like how this has a pretty decent duration. 24 seconds for that buff is good. It's going to be easy to maintain this in our rotation, and it also uses Magicka, so it's not going to drain too much of our stamina, which is nice. That, by the way, comes from Mage's Guild. So that's going to be your second ability there, Morph to Degeneration. And finally, the back bar ultimate. Since this is a bow setup, we're going to want Ballista. This is our main damaging ultimate that we're going to use. 175 ultimate to cast, and a lot of good damage. So that's the basic bars setup for both our front bar and our back bar bows. All right, so quick rotation on a boss here. Start with your biggest, your longest buff, Grim Focus. Debuff the boss's armor. And then go ahead and apply Degeneration to buff your damage. And get your back bar dots going. Try to get behind the boss if you can. Then we're going to do our back bar dot and then some lethal arrows, about 3 to 4 of those. By that time, your Spectral Bow should be ready. Go ahead and fire that off. And swap to the back bar. Reapply those dots, debuffs, and Degeneration. If you have your bow ultimate ready, go ahead and fire that off. Again, fire off the Spectral when it's ready. Enemy's getting close to execute, so I'm going to reapply my back bar dots. Do one more Spectral, and then here's our execute with Impale. You can see I'm full range here, so very easy to do. Nice. Okay, so a couple things about that fight. With Impale, since this costs Magicka, this is going to drain you pretty quickly. So that's where I mentioned you want to have some type of Magicka potion probably for your execute, just so you can maintain this a little bit longer. Also, if you have a really long fight, like let's say a veteran dungeon, then you may need to mix in some other stamina skills like Relentless Focus and Focused Aim, so you don't drain your Magicka in execute quite as quickly. This is basically the challenge of this type of hybrid build, where, yeah, you can run a Magicka execute, but how long can you sustain it? For most, basic content, you'll be able to do it no problem. But for things, like I said, like veteran dungeons, you may need to work on your sustain a little bit in practice. Now, some other options for skills here that you can use for, clearing through dungeons for AoEs. You're going to definitely want the bow skill called Bombard. You can place this on your front bar. I probably would put it in place of Debilitate, so right there. And then instead of Piercing Mark, I would run Razor Caltrops. So this is going to be for AoE fights, basically, where you have more than one or two enemies that you're fighting. Razor Caltrops gives you the same major breach debuff, but it does it in an AoE. So a nice big area. That's going to debuff all the enemy's armor. Then you can drop an Endless Hail on them. You can root them with Bombard, and you can just pick off the stragglers with your Focused Aim and then execute them with Impale. So that's a nice way to make this work for more AoE situations. All right, so let's talk quickly about passives. What do you need to make this build work? So in Assassination, you want Master Assassin. This increases your armor penetration when you're attacking an enemy from behind or to the side. Again, you always want to do that whenever you can. So bring out your companion, find a group, something like that. That's going to really maximize your damage on this build. Then we have Executioner. This is a fantastic passive. This is one of the first you should get because it gives you 1,000 Magicka and stamina back. That's every time you kill an enemy. That's absolutely amazing. Pressure Points is good as well to increase some of our crit chance. And then Hemorrhage does increase your critical damage. This goes really well with the Khajiit and with our other stats and the sets that we've chosen. Very high crit damage rating on this build. Now for Shadow, we're actually not running any Shadow abilities, so you can actually save some points here. You will for sure want Refreshing Shadows. The extra recovery is amazing, especially on the Khajiit, which already has base recovery. Pick up that for sure. Then Shadow Barrier, Dark Vigor, and Dark Veil we're really not utilizing on this build. So you can actually save 6 points if you want to. The only reason you would want these is if you're running one of these abilities. So for example, Dark Shade. Dark Shade can be nice on the setup if you need the group utility, if you need the Minor Maim debuff. You could put that maybe somewhere on your back bar. But just for the basic setup, Refreshing Shadows, that's all you need. And then Siphoning, lots of great passives here actually. Catalyst you want for the extra ultimate. Magicka Flood, we talked about. This increases your max Magicka pool, which will actually be helpful on this build since we're running the Magicka Execute for Nightblade. That's why we have Debilitate on the front bar. Then Soul Siphoner increases your healing done. That's not bad, but Transfer is also... Transfer can also get you some extra ultimate when you use that Debilitate skill. So those are the class passives. Obviously, you want all of your bow passives. We also talked about wearing both light and medium armor. Since we're using stamina combined with Magicka abilities, I would make sure to max out both of these armor skill lines. That's going to be really helpful. Under guild skills, Fighter's Guild, yes, you will want Slayer for the extra weapon and spell damage. That's a big one. Then Banish the Wicked for the extra ultimate generation. And then, of course, your racial skills, Alchemy, Medicinal Use is another good one. I'll have all the passives actually listed in the written guide, so if you want to look those over, check those out. There'll be a link for that in the description. Finally, let's jump into champion points. In the green tree, this is my typical green setup. By the way, if you need to see this or different versions, 300, 600, 900, or 1200 CP, they will have those listed out in the written guide. Our 4 main slottable stars will be Steed's Blessing, Treasure Hunter, Rationer, and then Liquid Efficiency. Over in the blue tree, our 4 slotted stars are going to be Fighting Finesse, Backstabber, Deadly Aim, and then Master at Arms. So obviously, again, this build is focused on critical damage. It's also focused on attacking from behind. That's going to give you the optimal damage. If you can't do that for some reason, you would switch Backstabber out for Thaumaturge, since we do have a couple of back bar dots. Other than that, make sure you pick up Tireless Discipline and Eldritch Insight for this build. Remember, we want a little bit of extra Magicka. This will give us more casts of that Magicka Execute. So the more Magicka you can get, the better. Also very important are your defensive passives. Those are Enstaving Death, so we have like Quick Recovery. Preparation is a very important one as well. Finally, in the red tree, I went with Boundless Vitality. This is important because we don't have any max health on the food. If you have a food with max health, you could probably move this somewhere else. Then we have Rejuvenation for the extra recovery. But then this is important. We have Bloody Renewal and Siphoning Spells. So again, remember we're running both Magicka and Stamina skills. We're getting Magicka and Stamina Sustain. Actually, this combined with the Nightblade passives gives us 2,500 Magicka and Stamina back every time we kill an enemy. That's absolutely crazy sustain. It's really good. So those are the main slotted stars. If you'd like to see more about the passives, again, those will be listed over on the website. Finally, if you're interested in the outfit style, this is actually just a costume, I believe. Yeah, this is an older costume. It's the Rawhide Lace Riften Jerkin. All right, everybody, and with that said, that's going to wrap up the Dark Arrow build, our brand new hybrid Nightblade bow setup for ESO in Update 33. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was a lot of fun to put together. And don't worry, I will have many more builds to come in this patch. So many new options. There's going to be a lot of different builds to set up for this one. As always, if you have questions about the build, make sure to check out the written guide. Link for that is in the description below. That includes alternate gear set options, alternate skills, every passive that you need, plus a full champion point breakdown for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP. Definitely go check that out. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and crush that like button so that YouTube knows to share this video to others. And if you're new, make sure to hit that subscribe button for even more ESO builds and guides. Finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, we do have a membership here hosted through YouTube, including a lot of great perks like early access to videos, members-only live streams, and our complete library of members-only builds and guides. If that sounds good to you, just click on that join button down below for more information. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.